States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone.
Smells like a barbaric.
Is there any public comment from the board?
Yes.
Mrs. Bertram.
I would like to make a statement regarding the workshop held last week and the claims and rumors that are running rampant on Facebook. Personally, I think that the workshop last week was a productive and thoughtful session, and I truly appreciate the input and involvement of all the people that attended. It's unfortunate that the meeting was not televised, and moving forward, I hope that any discussion involving the plan for municipal buildings is televised. One of the first questions that I had regarding the potential reuse of the patios as a town hall was, what is the reasoning behind the proposal? What is it we're trying to fix? And I learned that the reasons are many. There is significant work that needs to be done at the town hall and the Ritter. Town hall needs mold remediation, HVAC repairs, window replacement, and file storage. Files recently had to be moved out of the dirt floor basement because of mold and water damage. The files located in the attic have to be moved because of their weight. The Ritter needs HVAC replacement and windows replacement. Parking for the town hall continues to be a problem. There are no sprinkler systems or fire protection in either the town hall or the Ritter. The cost of maintaining our existing buildings, just from a utilities perspective, we currently pay over $41,000 a year for the town hall, almost $30,000 for the Ritter, and almost $62,000 for the patios. Currently, the patios is vacant, except for the few offices in use by the superintendent and her staff. The estimated best case for utility costs for this nearly vacant building is nearly $48,000 a year. Using money from the building revolving fund, we can cover it for another year, but after that, it will impact the town's budget. Does it make sense to leave this building vacant or to tear it down? It's in the best shape of all of our buildings based on the TAPE study, which is available on the website, and I encourage everyone to read it. Do we want it to end up like the old primary building? There are many advantages of converting the TCP to municipal use or mixed use. All departments would be under one roof. There would be a savings on maintenance and utility costs, possible consolidation of services between school and municipal, ADA compliance, parking, and fire protection. There are other benefits as well. More data needs to be collected on the potential cost of this proposal, and the cost of a feasibility study is being explored by this board for action at town meeting. Damon McQuaid, as a volunteer, presented a couple of sketches at the meeting showing a possible layout at the patios for school and town offices, and a conceptual sketch of a possible layout for the old primary. It was made very clear it was conceptual only, and just to give an idea of how the land could be utilized. No decisions were made regarding what to do with the site or the Ritter. When the issue of the old primary being a 40R was raised, we all agreed as a board that more research was needed on this issue and possible rezoning may be needed. There was no plan presented for affordable housing. This is an unsubstantiated, unproductive rumor. At the meeting, we unanimously agreed that public involvement on the future of all municipal buildings is needed. We intend to schedule charrettes, conduct a survey, publish as much information as possible on the website, and use various media outlets. We're not operating in a vacuum. I would encourage everyone to attend the meetings and provide input. Facebook is a great tool to reach people and to share information. But please, before making allegations and putting out misinformation that leads to speculation and rumors, check your facts and, most importantly, get involved. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Paula. I, too, read through some of that conversation and was troubled by a lot of what was said, and it's hurtful sometimes to hear people think there's some conspiracy or that we have developer friends lined up that we're trying to get these buildings to. It's hurtful as a volunteer to spend all that time on it when you have good intentions and you put all those hours in for people just, to say those things about you.
It really, I have to say, some of the things that were said, that we're operating, it is some conspiracy and that we all need to be voted out, and we welcome your involvement. And we're trying to do what we think is best and to present it to you as a community. And ultimately, it will be your decision, and I encourage all of you to get involved.
The one thing I'd just like to, I agree with Mrs. Bertram, but the one thing I'd just like to weigh in on is, we have agreed as a board to have workshops. If we feel it would be helpful to televise those workshops, as the chair, I have no objection to that at all. I just caution that sometimes we're working with spreadsheets or wordsmithing documents, and it's very tough for someone watching at home to follow along. Last week, we happened to have some visuals that were easily put up for slides. I have no problem with us televising all our workshops. It just may not be as clear as we would hope. That's why we're in a workshop format for those particular topics.
I agree, but I think because it's such an important issue for all of the townspeople, it is our town center, it is our municipal buildings, I think we have to make every effort we can to televise them.
No objection here.
And I think to the point about what goes on TV as far as spreadsheets and other things like that, I think when it's preliminary and initial information, it's sort of like first pass, that's probably not something that we need to work extra time to get on the screen. But as we get things that are more fully developed before we make decisions, then it's appropriate to have things, set up in advance for the AV to be shown.
Right, and maybe in that case, we don't do it in a workshop setting. Maybe we do it in this setting so that it is televised and it is easier to see. I mean, I think personally, I think that the workshop is an easier format because it's just easier to share information and to talk, and honestly, last meeting was great because the public was able to actively participate versus coming up to the podium and standing in front of us, and so I think it is a good tool. But I think we may have to have a mix of both formal meetings and workshops. But regardless, I do think it's important we televise them.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to read a resolution that the Massachusetts General Court, both the House and the Senate, as well as Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito, issued. The governor and the lieutenant governor issued as a proclamation in the resolution addressing neo-Nazi and white nationalist hate organizations. Whereas white nationalist organizations in our country have consistently promoted values that are overtly racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-immigrant, and their poisonous ideologies continue to promote hatred, bigotry, and violence, specifically against individuals solely on the basis of their race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and immigration status. And whereas today white nationalism and neo-Nazism remain very real threats to the values for which the Commonwealth stands, and their reinvention as the alt-right should not mitigate their hateful ideologies. And whereas free speech is a bedrock value for the citizens in our Commonwealth and country, white nationalist and neo-Nazi groups promote a message that is the antithesis of Massachusetts' dedication to civil rights for all and is in irreconcilable conflict with our foundational principles of liberty and justice for all. And whereas white nationalism and neo-Nazism are continuing to grow as menaces to societal order as they seek to reignite social animosities, reverse improvements in race relations, divide the nation, and foment hatred, classism, and ethnic eradication. And whereas the white nationalist and neo-Nazi message of racial and social intolerance has led to senseless acts of violence that continue to terrorize members of ethnic and religious communities, now therefore be it resolved that we strongly denounce and oppose the totalitarian impulses, violence, xenographic biases, and bigoted ideologies that are promoted by white nationalists and neo-Nazis, and be it further resolved that we urge law enforcement agencies and elected officials at every level of government to condemn white nationalist and neo-Nazi ideology, to vigorously pursue justice in response to hate-fueled violence, and work to endure the protection of the marginalized and targeted communities. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to the Mayor of Boston, the Mayor of Charlottesville, Governor of Virginia, and President of the United States. Thank you.
Any other public comment from the board? Any public comment from the public? Please.
Hello, Katie Adams from Williams Drive. Mrs. Bertram, when you made a lot of your comment, you made a lot of eye contact with me. I just want you to know that I've never been on Facebook. except to plan a class reunion 10 years ago, and I actually joined it this weekend because people told me it was being talked about, and I indeed wanted to read it. So I don't appreciate anybody implying that because I was at that meeting that I somehow am involved in negative things on Facebook.
If I made eye contact with you, honestly, I am legally blind without my glasses. I can't even hardly see you right now. So to read, I can't use my glasses, so I was just trying to look at the camera.
But for everybody who
Literally,
doesn't know
honestly-
me, I don't exist on Facebook. I actually just made a joke with a high school friend that we might actually be able to reconnect.
I know that. I do know that. And that my comments were not directed at you. Quite frankly, I was appalled at some of the comments that were made by individuals that have not been involved. I know you have been involved. And if any way you inferred that I was looking at you, I was not.
I read everything on there, and in some way or another, a lot of the information has some truth to it. And if that's the way people choose to have an opinion, I do feel that people are allowed to feel about the town center in the opposite way of which you all do. I don't think it should be required for us to agree with something being presented to us, and people have different styles of expressing themselves, and I don't think it should be taken so personally. I think they should be allowed their expression.
Well, when people start calling for the selectmen to be all removed from office, when they start saying
That's
we're
freedom of
having...
speech, though. It's
I
wild, but people
understand
said a
that,
lot of
Katie.
horrible things about me during the write-in campaign, which I wish they hadn't, but...
I don't want to debate with you. I understand that, and I disagree with the way, to say that we are looking to develop the town center. I will tell you right now, that is not in my goal. There were several options presented, nor do I intend as an individual to make a decision, and it's why I fought so hard at last town meeting, that I personally, I don't know how the board will vote, I personally do not believe it should be up to the five of us. I should very strongly feel it should be up to the townspeople, and that's what I fought for at town meeting. That's what I will continue to fight for. And I truly hope that when we have these charrettes and we have, I hope that you will continue to stay, I know you will continue to stay involved, but I hope that other people come, and I will hope that the people that have comments, because we are not looking to build affordable housing in the town center. We're not looking to build high-rises. We're not looking to sell it to a developer. We don't already have a plan in the works. Those are some of the comments that I heard. That is not the case. The case is the only formal decision that was made at that meeting was we believe that the TCP is the most logical place for the municipal offices to be, rather than in two different buildings. That was the only decision that we made at that meeting. There was no other decision other than we need to encourage the public to participate.
Okay, so I'll just do my public comment. So if we go to TCP, I think the biggest concern would be that by moving everything there, you are essentially leaving town center. There'll be no purpose to have a municipal existence in town center if there's nothing left to put there. Therein lies the concerns that lends itself to selling. To suggest that there's no plan to sell or whatnot, if you read the last couple of years of the Building Reuse Committee meeting minutes and you understand everything that went out for the RFPs, and you watch the November town meeting from fall of 2016, there is indeed been plans, meetings with developers and things. So to suggest that there's not seems unfair, because there really is activity that has taken place, and there really has been suggestions of the way it could be developed. So to imply that that doesn't exist as part of this, it most certainly does. But either way, if you abandon your municipal center, you have no purpose for it, and that lends itself to considering that this pathway, of it being sold would likely take place. When we talk about what's wrong with Town Hall and the Ritter, TCP needs significant work. One thing, it was built in the asbestos generation. It's very likely a building that age even has asbestos in its window caulking. You probably can't so much as change your window without abating asbestos. It's aesthetically displeasing. It's got like a bit of a Burger King roof. It's just not a pretty building. You put it there, you pave the Easter egg roll field, you have literally paved paradise, put up a parking lot. There's very little open space land in town by the time you sell this and renovate that. Also, I like that town activities take place in the center. Every single person under the sun may need to access a town building for a permit. And when we're talking about TCP, we're really still in a school zone or on a school campus. We've got a library, a playground, school fields. And if you put town hall there, you're really bringing the entire community into what is a lovely school campus. I mean, I think let's consider selling Marshall Park and putting the baseball fields where TCP is. You know, I think we're just not looking at the entire town and everything it has available. Maybe we don't need that parcel of land at Marshall Park. The parking there is really dangerous. Maybe we put baseball diamonds where TCP is. The kids can walk to it. It's a school campus. It keeps school campus a school campus. There's so many different ways to look at this, and I just don't feel like this is such a decision with long-term implications. Also, all the things that make these buildings not to code, TCP's not to code. I spent one day there a week with my daughter. I was afraid to bring her in the bathroom because it was really unsightly. It had a big rodent problem. Everybody who has been there joked and talked about the rodent issues last year. And like I said, the asbestos and everything. In terms of the TAPE study, it was a space needs study. They didn't look specifically into window replace. I mean, it was a space needs study that basically estimated what a cost might be for renovating a portion of the building. It certainly wasn't a cost for renovating the entire thing. It was to renovate, I believe, like a 20,000 square foot portion. Also, the TAPE study seems to arbitrarily say we need more space than we do, just in case we need it. And that lent itself to saying that is one of the best places to be because it's the biggest. And I think that warrants a little bit more. And the figures being put out for the buildings, the utility operation costs for TCP, I've certainly researched that, and it got a lot less expensive to operate this year for some reason, and it had to do with revenue it's generating that it will no longer generate in the future. I got figures from both the DPW and the school department of what it's cost in the past when I was working on this in the spring.
Ms. Adams, this is not an agenda topic right now.
Sure, this is my public comment. Yeah, I do. Thank you. And one more thing, like I wanted to point out, like we talked about how expensive the town hall is, but we didn't say it generates $32,000 of revenue a year, which actually makes it a lot less expensive to run than is being presented. Some of the figures and information, when you look at the bigger picture or take it a step further, it makes it feel like there's an agenda, because why would you not say that we generate $32,000 from this building when you just talk about how expensive it is? So I guess I'll just close by saying that we're really focusing on building costs too, and some of what people are interested in is what is the heart of our community, what is the historic value of buildings, what is the value of having open space for community to come together, preserving open space, and all we're talking about is like the cost of renovations, but over time, that just is a really small piece of a puzzle in what is the municipal identity. I've got a really great yard to play in, but we're adding a lot of apartments and condos to Lunenburg. Why not maintain municipal open space and municipal land, a place we know we can share with everybody that lives here? Playing Frisbee, playing picnic. Everybody's going to have a different way to experience Lunenburg, but municipal space is a place that everybody gets to use, and selling it is so short-sighted. And again, I can start, I could go through so many things. I've done so much research on this. It feels like an agenda because a lot of what's being presented is propaganda if you're not honest about the fact that some buildings generate revenue, et cetera. Or maybe you're just not looking that extra step. But I just wanted to say, again, I am, I've been on Facebook for 2 days because I wanted to hop in and see what people were saying. And everybody has a right to an opinion and a voice. And what I've experienced ever since I've gotten involved is that if my voice isn't matching the voice of those of you who are here, you don't want to be a part of it. And I have been rejected from everything I've tried to do. There's been opportunities where you could have appointed me to like the Charter Review Committee or something. You all want nothing to do with me, and it's obvious to everybody because we're not agreeing, and I think that's unhealthy.
I have to comment back. First of all, I did vote to appoint you. Secondly,
I was pretty general because I'm upset.
Secondly, when you talk about an agenda, that is insulting. I do not have an agenda other than what I am elected to do, which is to make decisions based on facts. Quite frankly, you're right, I didn't take into account the 32,000, and I should have. However, I have been looking at the facts, and to say that we want to just pave everything. I mentioned at that workshop that I lived in Pepperell and that I believe a town field would be a wonderful thing. I have not made up my mind definitively.
I don't think you have an agenda, and I'm being
Katie,
general.
I just want you to understand, you're being general, but people latch onto those words.
I'm trying to save the center. That's what I have to do.
And I appreciate your passion, but with that passion needs to come a mutual respect. And to say that we have an agenda and that we're meeting with developers, I was not, these are volunteers.
We have had developers meet with the Building Reviews Committee. That's a fact.
Because we're looking at all of our options.
Right, but to suggest we aren't looking at that as an option is not.
But no one has engaged with a developer. We have not.
The Building Reviews Committee has. It's in the
Okay,
minutes.
as the guy who wrote the minutes for the reuse committee all those years, the only times we met with developers, which was very few, was to receive input on what could possibly work in the town center, what somebody could be interested in, because it was a reuse committee to look at reuse of the buildings to see what the potential is. There was
You
no...
have presented on the development plan at more than one meeting, and you did prior to Articles 22 through 25. You sat up here for a very long time and explained what the vision was. It's called the Village Center Vision, and what it would look like if it were developed. Please do not suggest that you have not done that, because I can recommend all the YouTube videos where that indeed has occurred.
Village Center District is
The
a
Village
planning...
Center Vision, I said. The Village Center Vision.
comes from language from the Village Center District, which was adopted by the whole town at town meeting.
They didn't understand it applied to municipal
Okay,
land at the time.
I'm going to stop this right
Thank you.
now, and let me tell you, there is a time and a place for this debate. It'll be in the charrettes. We'll talk about the possibilities. There's an awful lot of facts that were worked on by a committee that worked for 4 years on it that are being misinterpreted both tonight and on Facebook.
That's unfair.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we're done with public comment.
My interpretation of things is accurate based on how I feel about it. Don't suggest it's my misinterpretation, because I speak specifically from fact, and I've done a lot of public outreach.
And we can have that debate when we have a
opinion.
charrette. Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment?
Don't bother making one, I'm not going to listen.
Okay. Our first agenda item is our 7:05 appointment on earth removal permits. And we have several permits in front of you. How do you want to do this?
Sure. This is a follow-up item from a previous meeting. A letter was sent to all the earth removal permit holders and to notify them of this follow-up meeting as well.
Did she notify them that this was on potentially not renewing licenses? Was a letter specific in that?
Yes, correct. And
Do we have a copy of that letter by any chance?
not in your packet, but I could probably find it in my email to read to you.
I would just like to know how it was worded, because I think if we're going to talk about not renewing people's licenses, I want to make sure that they're aware of that.
Oh, thank you.
There we go.
So it read, "This letter is to inform you that the Board of Selectmen will be reviewing all earth removal sites at their August 22nd, 2017 meeting at 7:05 p.m. and will either renew active permits or require closure plans for inactive sites based on recommendations from Interim Building Commissioner Gary Rhodes. The meeting will be held at the Lunenburg Town Hall, 17 Main Street, on the second floor in the Bellata Meeting Room. If you have any questions concerning this agenda item, please contact this office during office hours, Monday through Thursday."
Okay, based on that letter, I think some of the ones that we proposed that the building commissioner determined to be inactive, the applicant actually said, has there been activity since the last year? And the answer is yes. So therefore,
yeah.
I would think that if we were going to say not renew it based on the review, we'd need to say your particular permit.
Based on the level of activity at this particular site, we are considering not renewing that license. I think it needs to be more specific. I have no problem talking to the individuals that are here tonight that came in response to that letter. We can talk about those sites, but individuals that are not present, I think we have to re-notify and let them know that that particular site is being considered based on the level of activity to be
Well,
non-renewable.
Maybe I can suggest we see who's here.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
anybody's
yeah.
contesting a closure,
Yeah.
and then we can deal with those
Okay,
specifically.
okay, that sounds great.
Adam would like to speak.
And Adam is here as well and has some guidelines as well.
Hi, all. I think to the point that you're talking about now with, Adam Burney, Land Use Director, but to the point you're talking about now where you have some permits that may be questionable, whether they're doing activity or not, you're coming up on the deadline for renewal, so I might recommend that on the ones that are questionable, you give them a shorter term than the one-year renewal to facilitate not taking their permit away, but allowing them to present you with evidence that they are or are not removing, and sort of extend this conversation into September or October as they have time, and that way you're not running up against effectively taking their permit away and then requiring them to completely reapply, and then you can talk a little bit more about the document that you have from me and some of the other concerns that you have that have been brought up. So I think you have the ability to grant the permits for a shorter period of time than 1 year, where the standard time is the 1 year. And
So how short a time?
I think that's a discussion for the board. I mean, I think that if you're, I think outside of some of the larger, and even some of the larger ones probably aren't operating in through the winter. And so if you went for 3 months, that gives you September, October, November, and you have that opportunity for someone to continue doing work if they are, to have the conversation that's necessary. I don't think outside of maybe, again, some of the larger operations that might have areas that are effectively closed but may have future potential. They may want longer to do some exploration, but a lot of the smaller sites, which I think are the ones that are looked at as de facto closed or operating on a minimal basis, those should be able to give you information on a relatively quick turnaround. So my recommendation would be 3 months, and that would give everybody sort of a drop dead and wouldn't force the issue on 30 or 60 days, but a little bit of breathing room, but not uncontrolled.
I'm just suggesting that we see which permits fall under that, because we
Yeah,
might be able to
yep,
approve
yep,
some,
yep.
and
Yeah.
that is
I
a good
agree.
option if in fact we have further.
I just wanted to get that out there before
that's
we
good.
went too far into discussion.
Great.
When will we discuss the earth removal closure standards?
I would say we would do that at the point we're going to tell people they need to close.
Are these the standards something we have on record or something we're thinking
No,
about
this is
adopting?
something new, and I actually
It's
think we would
proposed
have,
by Adam.
I think we actually would have to act on that first. Wouldn't we?
Have to what?
If we were going to recommend somebody close, we need to have,
Right.
we don't have to, but we currently, the bylaw says that we have the right to require a closure plan. But we don't state what this
We don't
is.
say what it is. So
Right. We
this would
already
be
have the-
supplement, we already have that. So
We
this
already
would
have
be,
the
so this
power.
would be the plan and the guidelines under which they would have to do that plan.
Correct. My recommendation was that these might be conditions to the
Okay.
special permit.
Okay.
Because really what it's doing is giving guidance on closure. I think in my thinking and in discussions with the building commissioner and the town manager, we have a lot of sites that I would consider to be legacy operations that have been around probably longer than any of our bylaws. They don't have closure plans. To go to them now and say, we want a closure plan on, the thousands of acres that you're quarrying, or even the hundreds of acres, is a substantial cost in engineering and survey. And I think it's probably a little bit unfair and a little bit burdensome where they've been operating to this point, where attaching closure requirements and specifics to how they would go about closing and requiring closure plans at the time that they go to close is a more reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion we have to have, but, I think our existing regulations say that the board can require a closure plan.
It does say that.
And I don't know that requiring a closure plan is an unreasonable burden. I don't know that I would agree with you, because it very clearly states, and it has for many, many years, that a closure plan may be required.
And,
So-
and again, I mean, that's a topic of discussion, I think.
And I have a couple questions on this, if we
Yeah, let's see who's here for the permits first, right?
Okay.
Well, we have three separate entities, right? Montori, Powell,
and Keating,
Keating.
PJ Keating.
Okay.
Is this all of them, or are these the ones that are inactive? In this packet that we have
I think
stapled?
these are everyone.
These are.
These are everyone. But where, do we have the letter in which Mr. Rhodes indicated the ones he would recommend?
Yeah, that's on the front of the
The
packet.
first page,
Yeah.
okay.
So maybe we could take the Montori property first. Is there somebody here from Montori?
Okay.
Come on up. Okay, so
Hi.
Hi. So it appears, according to our building commissioner, that the activity on the Montori property at 186 Mass Ave is inactive, and he's recommending a closure plan, so,
Yeah, we take some out in the fall for the greenhouse and in early spring to fix the flea market and more for the greenhouse. I mean, it's not as active as it was because the business, as we all know, the construction companies kind of have gone downhill, but we do use it, just not a whole lot like we used to.
Is there a certain area of the land that you're using and another portion of the land that is gone back to natural vegetation? I mean,
With
because
the
right
wet-
now, your permit's for 23.5 acres. I can't imagine that you're getting 5 dump truck loads out of that whole 23.5 acres.
No, it's just a certain area that we take out of.
So our regulations don't differentiate between limited removal and very active removal. So I think that goes to, I don't know, is there further definition of what is inactive? Because if there's something that's being moved, I'm not sure if our regs, let's see if I can pull
Are you
them
the
up.
permit holder?
My mother is, but she couldn't come.
So my
Daughter.
concern is if the property is starting to reforest, we have no idea of what's being reforested. I mean, is the material there, are there stumps, is there debris? That's my concern, is, at a 23.5 acre site that was an earth removal permit, if it's reforesting, it's obviously not an active site.
No, it says it's the property containing 23.5. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the permit. The property has that.
I think it's for the whole 23.5 acres, Bob. We would have to check that, but I believe this is the renewal for that property.
Yeah, and it looks like it's the 23, renewal for the
Yes,
23.5
23.5
acres.
Keating's 170 acres, another one 165 acres, 180 acres, 6.8 acres, 22 acres. I think that's the size of the parcel.
Right.
So the question becomes, how much of the parcel is actually being, that had the original part? I think we need some more work on this.
Yeah, well, and that's my question, is when business was better and you were actively mining the site, was it the entire site, or was
Oh,
it
no.
only a portion of the
Just a
site?
portion
It was
of it.
only a portion
Yeah.
of the site.
So we should change this form. I mean,
Yes, we should.
It should apply
It should
just
reflect to the area that's
The-
being actively worked.
This was one of our topics we were going to do, is work on the earth removal permit process, including the restoration and making sure people are not depositing contaminated soil into it.
And even have maps that specify.
Where the activity is taking place.
Right.
And where the permitted activity is versus where it isn't.
so is this one that, as Adam suggested, we want to renew for a shorter period of time while we do?
I would recommend that we renew it for a shorter period of time, but I think we may, and I don't know if this is completely off base, but similar to what conservation does, they do site visits. I think it might make sense for us to consider some site visits for these inactive sites.
I would move that we renew this permit for 90 days from September 1st, October, November, till November 30th, with the understanding that if it's renewed for the rest of the year, the applicant will not be required to reapply with a permit fee.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So we've renewed it for 90 days, but
Okay.
we're gonna probably schedule another hearing or a follow-up
Okay.
on this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you.
Then we have quite a few Keating properties. Is anybody here from Keating? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Mo Langlois. I'm the operations manager. Just wanted to point out initially, I'm a little excited. I'm minutes away from being a grandfather again, so.
Good for you.
Oh, great.
Congratulations.
Matter of fact, maybe too much for TV, but the last text was fully dilated, pushing now, so.
Do we need to take a recess?
So once again, I apologize for the inappropriate comment, but a little excited about it. So one of the things we'd like to talk about is the fact that the interpretation of the permit process this year kind of caught us a little bit off guard. And we were here 2 weeks ago, and we appreciate the fact that you were here willing to talk to us again 2 weeks later. One of the things that we found out is we're struggling a little bit with the fact that the permits don't really have a parcel number attached to them. So we've been, over the last 2 weeks, kind of trying to identify which permit goes to which parcel. One of the things that we have determined is that our properties, although may be a little bit dormant on the current vision of them, they all have plenty of reserves that can be excavated. So what we're respectively asking, is that we get our permits renewed in entirely for the year, which allows us to truly locate which ones they are, what our plans are, action plans, whether to excavate or to come up with a closure plan by the end of the permit, which would be next year, August.
You couldn't do it in 90 days?
Well, that's the thing is, if it was as simple as this is this one and this one is, so we have, I do think we need to fully understand what the vision is for those properties, and I'm not sure that we can thoroughly do that in 90 days. So, as I said, we're kind of respectfully just asking for the one more year, and we would come in better prepared next year with the plan or closure plans.
So I guess I'm not quite sure, like permit 14, you don't know where that is?
Well, I mean, the guidelines and some of the stuff that we've pulled up, the acres are a little bit off, but the thing that we'd like to do is we'd like to invest some time into putting parcel numbers with those permits so that we could really truly come in more prepared next time to identify which ones we want to continue and which one potentially, and I'm just saying potentially, could be closed, and we'd bring in plans for that as well.
So since we just dealt with another one, I'm actually more comfortable doing a 90-day extension for all of these, with the understanding that means we're not going to shut it down in 90 days, but we want you to do some work.
Okay.
And that we may extend it again another 90 days or 6 months at that point, based on the work that you've done. That also would give us 90 days as a to-do list for us to figure out, well, what would we require? So that you can say, well, okay, we're fine with that because we can deal with that closure plan, or we have, we need to do some public input on that too. So,
Yeah, I will be honest, I'm more comfortable with the 90 days and to see what we can accomplish in 90 days and then potentially extend it or make decisions if we're able to determine, this is a site that we're willing to that we're not going to mine.
Okay.
I'd just like to have another conversation in 90 days.
Sure.
And just for the clarity, is that any active site, we're not going to say, no, we're not going to do that later on, because we don't want to stop your business in the middle of the year, that type of thing. So, and I wouldn't expect we'd do it at the end of the year either, so.
One of the things I'd like to point out is, although we received the letter and we fully understand what this meeting was about, what we didn't receive was the ones that were recommended to close. So of the 11 permits that we're applying for, we don't know which one Mr. Rhodes said, hey, this one's inactive. So with that, that's why, I understand what you're saying about 90 days, but I just want to make sure we can get all the information we need, right?
Yeah, in his,
All of the ones that you indicated, there's been no activity within the last year, and then permit number 18.
but based on the building inspector's wording, it said has 11 separate permits. Some are very active. We should consider if a plan be submitted and the permits not being used being terminated. But he doesn't state which ones are not being used. What's the definition of not being used? The fact that there's no activity doesn't necessarily mean that it's not being used. It just says within the last year. So,
I would assume that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
yeah, but there's enough concern here.
But even if I'm interpreting this right, even the board's kind of not sure which permits he's talking about,
I
correct?
think we can get that information
Yeah.
to you very quickly.
Okay.
Because I'm sure Mr. Rhodes can provide that to you, and we can send you out a list of the permits that we're considering as inactive.
I think that's fair.
And I guess in order to close the loop for today, I would make a motion that we approve all of the PJ Keating permits, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18,
Well, that's a lot of them.
19,
27,
28,
28,
29,
29,
30.
30,
And 42.
30, no, that's,
There's one behind.
okay, in the back.
There's one behind.
42.
There's one
yeah,
behind.
40,
Powell.
all right, and
Powell,
42.
42.
Be approved for a 90-day period to November 30th, with the understanding that if the permit is extended beyond that, the applicant will not have to pay another renewal fee.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, I had a question that I had contacted Mr. Rhodes about, and I don't know if this is the time to bring it up or not. I travel down Leominster Shirley Road by your property all the time, and it's very dusty at the top of the hill. Your property is wet down, so it's not so dusty, but the road is seldom wet down. It was at 9 o'clock this morning, and it wasn't dusty. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, the road wasn't wet down, and it was very dusty, and it's always very dusty.
You know, I'm actually glad you brought that up because
Oh, good.
I certainly like the interpretation of the town. So we've done a few different things. So one of the things we've done is we've extended our hours on the water truck to make sure that we are watering our property to keep dust mitigated. Last year, we paved additional aprons on either side of Route 70 to kind of give us an opportunity to clean those wheels before they got onto Route 70. What we've been doing is we've been watering up to the road, and at times we've attempted to water across the road, which is what you said. This morning it was wet and it was fine, and then when you went through it was dry and it wasn't. We've received complaints from neighbors saying that we shouldn't be watering the road. So
Is it runoff that they're
I don't believe it's a runoff thing. I think that people are concerned that when they go from dry pavement to wet pavement, that there's a possibility that something could happen. So we're unsure of where our boundaries are. In a perfect world, we water across the road. I mean, we're not making puddles. We're just kind of keeping the dust down. But we try to be good neighbors. So when we get a complaint, we try to react to them. But we certainly understand, and we've witnessed what you're talking about. And as I said, we've extended the aprons to try to get the the dust off the tires
It's
before
on
they get out
70,
there.
right?
On 70,
Not
right.
on Shirley Road.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And actually, we've extended paving on Leominster Shirley Road as well, over by our primary plant. So there's paving.
At the top of the hill?
At the top of the, correct, yep. We actually turned the corner towards our primary crusher and towards our recycle area. We extended pavement over there last year in an effort to try to capture some of those.
Yeah, you probably got a good deal on pavement.
Yeah, Brock's is just up the road. Anyways, but so we are aware of that, but I guess can the town give me an interpretation of what is allowable as far as watering across the road?
So I'm pulling up the bylaw now, but I think that goes to our interpretation of how we do our annual permits and then implementation of that.
So the answer is we need to look at it.
That'll give us something to do while you sort out your...
Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you 90 days.
Okay.
Can I get a second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So I just have two quick questions. One is, we will receive a letter of which ones that Mr. Rhodes suggested, and then we will get some kind of notification prior to the November 30th about the process, right?
Yes.
well in advance.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Oh, yeah. thank-
Congratulations.
And I would make a motion that we approve for a period of 90 days the Raymond Powell permit number
Is there-
32 and 54
Is there anyone here?
Is there
to
anybody
speak
here
to
from
those?
PAL? Okay.
with the same requirement for 90 days, and that if their permit is extended further within the year, that they do not have to pay their permit fee.
I would second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think we do need to send a follow-up letter to these individuals with the permit numbers as we're sending to Keating, but to Montori as well. Well, Montori's only one, but to Powell outlining what permits we're considering as inactive.
And then we need to schedule a time to talk
time
about
to talk to them.
earth removal closure standards for us, process to make that a public process for the applicants and the citizens at large. And I would like to make sure we include what the town of Uxbridge went through with the dumping and the filling of land of contaminated soils from outside of the town, let alone inside the town, that they've done a new bylaw on.
And will we discuss the earth removal standards at a later date as well?
Yeah, I'm talking about doing it all together.
Let's do it all at once.
We probably could do it at a workshop where we don't televise it and don't talk to the public, but I would suggest this is an important subject that we would not do that.
Shucks.
Okay. Moving to our 7:25 appointment for toll booth fundraiser request from the Boys and Girls Club of Lunenburg for September 9th, 2017. A familiar face.
Mr. Chair, Tom Alonso, 284 Lancaster Avenue, appearing before you tonight as a member of the Board of Directors of the Boys and Girls Club of Lunenburg. So we are requesting one of our twice-a-year tolls. Last year we chose the same date. The only difference in this one is that we're just changing the request for the location to be on Lancaster Avenue, at the point, because that is the day of the Stillman Fair. We want to be on the side of the road, on the road itself, but not in the middle of the road. It'll be at a detail where the people are going to be crossing back and forth. We will clearly have Boys and Girls Club shirts on. We will have all the proper permits for people as requested in the new bylaw that everybody be wearing, everybody be over 18, everybody will have submitted a liability form, etc. I have checked with Chief Marino. He does not see it as a safety issue, as there will be a police detail anyway, and we will not be going up and down the middle of the road anyway. We'll be parked right at the edge of the shoulder of the road. So in that rectangle where people would be crossing, we would probably have one person at each of those corners.
So the only place you'll be there on that day is on Lancaster Ave?
Correct.
And what are the times?
I don't have the form in front of me. I did not bring it with me. It's 11 to, I think, 3.
11
Yeah.
to 3.
Will they park on the side of the road or in the parking area?
Well, I don't think we want to take a parking space from...
You won't actually be in a car, you'll be on
No,
the street.
we'll be...
They won't be parked at all.
Oh, so they won't.
They'll be on the
We're not
street,
going
right.
to park in the parking.
Yeah.
We're not going to take parking away from the fair.
Yeah.
We'll get there some way. Either we'll have somebody run us down and then take the car up, but we're not going to take up a spot or spots, no.
I would make a motion, we approve the request for the boot drive.
I do just want to make note, and I don't have a problem with it, but I do just want to make a note that our DPW director does have some concerns.
Yeah, I was going to mention, there is a note in the file from the DPW director, but he is willing to defer to the traffic professionals. So the fact that Mr. Alonso talked to the chief.
I would say that if the police chief has taken this into consideration, I would be okay with it, with the understanding that we need to, I mean, the reality is what's gone on at that location is that there is so much traffic that it is slowed down more than the center of town. So if, in some ways, it's maybe at the beginning it'd be a little bit more of a safety issue, but if there's a police officer there as a detail, there is going to be much slower traffic there than there is actually in the center of town.
I agree. And as long as the police chief is fine with it, I'm fine with it.
I'm just commenting. We're still waiting on some waiver forms as well. So
Right, the liability waivers, I know that we have to get them to you, and I think I have to check with the Boys and Girls Club about making sure that, I don't know who exactly is going to be there, and make sure that everybody who will be involved in that will have one, yes.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second?
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? I just, our next agenda item is to grant the actual entertainment license to the Lions Club, and I noticed the Lions Club is here. Do you have any input to this, or?
I just found out about it. I probably would run it by the committee, but
Well,
it's not up to me.
mhm.
We have free parking, we like to have free activities for the kids, and kind of pride that...
Do you want to just...
Lisa Normandin, 33 Cliffview Terrace, president of the Lions Club. Tom just talked to me out front about this, so I wasn't aware of it until tonight. But if you approve it, then it's approved.
So I guess we want to make sure, and I'm sure this is not the case, but make sure that people don't think that it's an admission fee to Stillman Farm, that it's a contribution to the Boys and Girls Club.
That is absolutely correct, and I spoke to Lisa about that. That was one of her concerns, because everything is free. We will make it clear that it is a voluntary toll, and if we have to tell people that, you can't approach people, you can stand there with the buckets, but you can't start approaching people and make them feel like they need to pay something, then I will do that. It is not our intention to interfere. We just want to go where the traffic is, because that makes the most sense as far as the toll. But we do not want to interfere with anything they're doing there. I fully support everything they're doing there, and have for the first 2 years, and will this year. So if that's a requirement, I don't want to run aground of anything they're doing, and I will make that point to them.
I guess we can see how it goes this year, see if there's any issues.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Which brings us to,
And just to follow up is that I'm not sure if there's anything in our policy about boot drives that would say that we would turn it down. So if we're going to talk about changing how we're approving and disapproving, we may need to revisit that again.
We keep revisiting these policies.
Well, different things come up.
Yeah.
our 7:30 appointment is for a one-day special liquor license for the Lions Club and a weekday entertainment license for the Lions Club for that same date.
I filled out all the required paperwork, and I think the application stands on its own. I brought some posters, so if anybody wants, I'll leave them on the table. If you want to put one at your place of business, we hope to have a really great fair and good weather this year.
And everyone that's going to be serving is tip certified?
Yes. Elaine gave me all the paperwork. I was off last week, but everybody got their paperwork in on time. I just have to pay for the entertainment license, and my treasurer was on vacation, but everything else, the liquor license paid for.
I just noticed is that in the letter requesting the entertainment license, it says that the Police Department, Fire Department, and Public Works have knowledge of the event. I'm going to take the leap and assume they have knowledge and they're okay with it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, in fact, we're having a meeting the Wednesday before the fair, and they will all be there, just to go over any last-minute snafus.
And I reached out to them as well, and they all confirmed that they have no issue with the event.
I would make a motion to approve the application for a license for one-day sale of alcoholic beverages as requested by the Lunenburg Turkey Hill Family Lions Club for the Stillman's Country Fair on September 9th, 2017.
Second.
Any discussion?
So one-day beer and wine, do we require a liability insurance?
Yeah, I think I saw it.
We do not in our policy.
Oh.
So that's something I already spoke to Elaine about.
Okay.
We'll
But we
address
do have a certificate of insurance that was provided.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's
That's-
connected to the entertainment
Yeah.
request,
Okay.
but it's there.
Because it's not clear whether that's for the entertainment, that's not clear whether alcohol would be covered. So, I mean, I'm fine, if we don't have it in our policy, I'm not going to change something for this, but I think that's something we need to look at. I'm not.
Wait a minute. Look at this last sentence in caps on the insurance thing.
Oh, provisions of the policy do not apply to the sale or serving of alcoholic
Yeah,
beverages.
that's why that's attached to the entertainment license, not to the other, so.
So I think we'll need to get some
that in the
certificate of
policy.
insurance for the alcohol piece.
No, we don't require that as part of our
Require it,
policy.
So we can't require it.
Okay.
So we need to look at that for the future, because that can be substantial expense.
So we
Okay.
need to look at that for our policies.
Fair enough. All right, so did the motion include both?
No, it was just for the one-day line.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve the weekday entertainment license at the Stillman Country Fair on September 9th.
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion about that? All those in favor?
Aye.
So that covered both.
Right.
Both permits.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
While you're here, do you want us, we could kind of go out of order and pick up current business item number
That's the first one.
1. Okay, so it's not out of order. And that has to do with the signs that you're recommending.
Yes. One of our Lions put that together. I don't know if you noticed at the Bootlegger, they have that lion sign. We'd like to get a little exposure in town. He had a lot of locations there. The ones that he thought would be prime locations,
Have you talked with the DPW director at all?
no, I haven't.
There's a letter in the package from Jack, and apparently
I didn't speak with him.
Adam is waiting as well.
So he stated, "The Lions organization has been a great friend to the community. I'm pleased to offer assistance. We will need to order the posts and the sign brackets, which will take a bit of time, otherwise they can be in place in one day. The only reservation I have is this: as we visit each location, I want to be sure that the area is not inundated with other signs known in the industry as sign pollution. I do not foresee a problem. Please have the signs delivered to the DPW as they become available. Respectfully, Jack Roderkins."
Now, who will pay for the poles?
We'll pay for them.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know.
I think it's just the highway department will install them.
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve the requested signs from the Lunenburg Turkey Hill Lions Club with the provision that they work with the DPW to ensure that each location is appropriate as deemed by the Director of Public Works.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
So, as the policy person that I am, I support this, but I think we need to probably adopt a policy about signage for the inevitable other nonprofit that might come before us for other signage, so, but I support the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
3 for 3, thank
Three
you.
for three.
Do you want to stay for anything? You have an opinion on the color of the town hall?
I voted online. It's here if anybody wants to put them in their place of business, and I have some little handouts.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Our next item of current business is to vote on the color to repaint the town hall, which is mentioned in the town manager's report as the first item.
Yes, so as we discussed, the survey that we solicited input on what the color of the town hall should be painted. And the survey results generated approximately 600 responses, with 85.33% choosing the color white. Under the comment section of the survey, many people commented that painting the building white and the trim, shutters, and detail black would look the best, as it would provide a offset to and the architectural details of the building. So that would be my recommendation as well.
I would make a motion that we repaint the town hall the color white with black shutters and detail.
Is there a second?
I'll do second for conversation.
Yeah. How much trim's getting black?
Yeah,
Because that
that's-
could end up being a lot.
That's where I am too. Because before, the entire building was white with black
And with
shutters,
black shutters and black door.
black door and black windows. So are we talking about doing corner
Not black
boards,
windows,
cornices? Well, the windows, the mullions
All right.
used to be black.
All right,
but
I would amend my motion to say black shutters and black doors.
So you're going to paint the door?
The door will be black, yeah, and the shutters will be black.
Shutters, yes.
I would second that motion.
Is there any discussion on that?
The conversation I have is that I like the intent that the previous painting of the building to make it historically correct. I think it's not worked out with the various issues with the windows being white, and paint is a removable, replaceable item on a historic building, so if there's some reason in the future that we want to go to a historic color, we can do that, but I believe it's important to get it painted. White will make a major change to where we are at the moment.
Paint will make a major change.
I'm just happy to see it getting painted at all. The only comment I have is that I think it's a very good thing what we did, reaching out to the public and seeing what they wanted, but just also at the time saying that we've weighed the popular vote over what is actually historical. Just a comment that going forward, I think it's a good thing that we did that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just that we did it. And whereas we have the Preservation District and some other things where we're talking about their restrictions and how historically accurate we want to force other people to be, we just take that in perspective.
I thought we had information from the Historical Commission that it was white.
Yes, and that was going to be my comment, that we did reach out to.
And there may be a difference of opinion on what's historically accurate, but I saw correspondence from someone related to the Historical Commission.
Both historical.
Both the
Society
Historical
and
Society
Commission.
and the Commission have said it was white.
When it was a church, when it was over there and 12 feet shorter and didn't look like this.
Okay.
When it was a town hall, we have paint samples and study that was done. That's why when we got state money to paint it the last time,
Okay.
the state had us do that research and paint it the historic color.
I wasn't aware of that. I think we've asked the people, and it's overwhelmingly 85.33% in favor of white.
Right.
So I think we've asked the people, and I think we have to honor what the people want.
Absolutely.
Although there are times when we will vote in a way that the town did not do, so
I also...
I'm not going to just have our policy dictated by a poll. I think a poll
agree with
informs
that.
this.
I
think it's
agree with that.
important
I
to
agree
get
with
that
that,
feedback, and I think the comments that people made as they made their comments were very valuable as well, because it talked about why they thought about it, not just, let's just do it, we have to do it that way, so.
Yeah, I agree.
I also was going to make the point that while I'm thrilled with 600 responses, it's still less than 10% of the population of the town. And our, one of our goals for the year is to improve our public satisfaction through community involvement. So it's a good first step, but I certainly have hopes that we're going to get even higher than 600 when we begin to get...
Agree.
The only part on that, I'd say, is that there's statistics that show people who provide a comment either through a phone call, email, respond to a survey, whatever, they are the ones that are taking the time to do it. Somebody else will have an opinion, but their schedule doesn't really supply the time to do it. And statistically, they talk 6 to 7 people represent each person. So therefore, I think you have a greater response rate based on people's interest. They may not have taken the time, so.
Fair enough.
So I'm not quite sure what you said, like, for each yes, there's probably 6 or 7 people who agree with that?
No, for yes or no. So when people respond, that's usually an indication of what's out there in the community, and that they just didn't take the time to actually respond to the survey. So when a legislator gets a call from a constituent saying, I support or oppose a bill, there's probably 6 to 7 people in the district who feel the same way, so they can figure out who's doing it. And so therefore, an issue that gets thousands of calls is an indication that's really important to people. The other ones, they're important to people, but not as important, because people don't call on every single issue, but they still have an opinion.
We know that.
Okay, so we have a motion that's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
When does it start painting?
What?
When do you start painting?
Go out to bed first.
We're on a roll. Our third current business is a follow-up on the pay-as-you-throw extra large bag. And there's a memo from the town manager in your packet.
Yes, so I'll take it. So at that, our last meeting on August 8th, the board requested a survey be done on this topic as well, as far as the potential changes that included potentially adding a 40-gallon extra large bag, increasing the thickness of the 30-gallon large bag to 1.75 mil, and preference for changing from a twist tie to a drawstring bag. So attached to the survey results, and from the results you can see it is almost a 50-50 split between making no changes, which was 37.47% of respondees. Other changes not listed, there were a variety of responses under that. That wasn't one of the options, which is 17.43%. Adding an extra large bag, 15.63% of respondees responded with that. Increasing the thickness of the large bag, 27.45% people voted for that, or both, adding the extra large bag and increasing the thickness, 21.04%. And approximately 74% of respondents would like the bags to be drawstring. Other items the board asked for additional information on was the amount of additional plastic that the bags changes would require and how many of Waste Zero's clients have bags larger than 30 gallons. An extra large bag would add 33% more plastic than the current large bag, and increasing the thickness of the large bag from 1.5 mil to 1.75 mil would be 16.5% more plastic. Waste Zero has 3 communities that offer bags larger than 30 gallons: Taunton, Ayr, and Gloucester. Community 1 only offers a 35-gallon bag, so 100.
So no 30, so there's just-
They have no option. They have one bag.
One size?
One size.
Wow.
Community 2 sells a 15-gallon bag, which is 20% of their sales, a 33-gallon bag, which is 54% of their sales, and a 40-gallon bag, which is 26% of their sales. And the third community sells a 15-gallon bag, which is 15% of their sales, and 35-gallon bag, which is 85% of their sales.
Did you look at what percentage of sales ours is?
It was almost 50-50 between the small and large bags. They're current.
The average? But
Yeah.
the
Yeah, we had
trend has
that.
gone down. That is,
had that in the
that's the
package
thing.
last
is
week.
This year, the trend has gone down.
In the last attachment we had at the last meeting, it showed that the sale of the large bags was actually going down.
It has fluctuated over time.
And an interesting thing is that 15% want to add an extra large bag, and that's the same percentage who wanted the town hall to stay the same color.
No cause and effect there, I'm sorry.
Okay. And my recommendation to the board would be to, based on the results, would be to add the extra large bag as a pilot program, increase the thickness of the large bag, and make the bags drawstring bags. Purchasing the minimum order of 50 cases of extra large bags will allow us to see the demand for this size bag and the ability to discontinue this bag in the future if, after all the bags are sold based on that usage, if we do not see a sufficient amount of usage. Waste Zero cannot include this bag in the contract agreement, and therefore it will be subject to an additional 4 to 6 cent additional charge per bag if we include it in the retail store distribution program, which would bring the price between $4.04 and $4.06 per bag, or $20.20 to $20.30 a roll. Increasing the thickness of the large bags will increase the price by 1 cent per bag, and changing the pricing for, that would change the price for a roll of bags from $12.75 a roll to $12.80 a roll.
For which bag?
For the large bags.
Large.
And there is no added cost for changing from a twist tie to a drawstring.
You know, I have a question. When do we pay for the hauling? When is that paid for?
We receive monthly bills from Consella, I believe.
So, what do they base that on?
It's our contract price with them with a adder for under the consumer price index.
So they're not counting bags. They may figure that in when it's time to renew, but they're not counting each week how many bags they collected or anything like that. It's a contract cost.
Based on volume, I believe.
Right.
Volume of what?
Trash.
The tonnage.
Right.
The tonnage, so the trucks
So
get
they weigh
weighed.
the trucks?
The way the truck's empty and the way the truck's full, and then the total tonnage is how it's all calculated, which is why we want people to recycle, because it reduces the tonnage. And then the money from the bags gets put into the revolving fund to help pay, or does it go to the local receipts?
I think it's a special accounts receipts reserved account.
Well, it's got to be something special because it has to be self-funding. You know, I personally think 10,000 bags at $3,700 is not a pilot program.
Well, I
I think that's just too much inventory.
But if you look at 15%, so the people who said they wanted it,
Yeah.
looking at what we sold, these are cases of bags, and there's 50 cases in the order, right? Is that what?
Yes, 50 cases.
So that's 388 cases, which were the large ones that were sold. 15% of that is actually really close to 50. So it's going by the demand of 15% of the people say they want it. That'd be, 15% of the bags for the.
Oh, I follow
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
I follow what you're saying.
And it's not like they're lost cost. They'll sit on the shelf till they sell. And especially if we go with the,
But when are we
if
paying?
we go with Waste Zero's store
We
distribution
pay
program.
for the bags up front.
Yeah.
So we're going to have $3,700 out of the pay-as-you
Yeah, out of a
tied up.
$33 million budget. I kind of feel that,
Well, out of a $33 million budget.
not a-
but-
It's not a $33
it's
million
what-
budget.
What's the budget for the,
What is the budget
waste.
for the pay-as-you-throw?
do you have?
but what is the cost of the town manager's time to keep fetching rocks for us?
To what?
Getting more data. I mean, she's making a recommendation here. I think it's a reasonable recommendation. Do we really want to manage items of this size?
I just disagree with the recommendation, that's all.
Okay.
Well, and I don't think that asking where the $3,700 is going to come from and whether or not there's enough meat in that budget to cover that is an unreasonable
Well, it's going to be
question.
replenished as they're sold. I mean, it's a self-funding
sold.
program.
If they're sold.
And if they're not sold,
Sufficient funds.
so there's sufficient funds.
Okay, so that's the question.
And
Okay.
if a
How
year,
does the pay-as-you-throw have extra money? That's what I don't understand.
I would have to go back historical, and
I mean, you're
I
saying...
know that because
you're
I
saying
spoke
you
with
know-
the finance director.
So what?
I know that because I spoke with the finance director to make sure that we had sufficient funds to cover the cost.
so we always pay for these things in advance? Do they, like our current ones?
Yes.
So we pay for them and then we get the money back. So we're always buying, so therefore there has to be enough cash flow money in there in addition to a year's money in, money out. So there'll always be that little extra that there should be there. We shouldn't just budget to be exactly even, there should be a little extra. And so therefore, if the finance director said there's funds there, I'm sure that's part of that, and $3,700 out of the, I'm going to say $500,000 for pay-as-you-throw.
I think it's half a
It's
million.
between 5
Yeah,
and
so I think it's a
600,000.
small enough amount for the cash flow basis that we can do that. I would make a motion that we accept the town manager's recommendations.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, or nay, whatever.
Whichever.
Me.
Our next item is the T-Mobile Wireless Communication Lease Agreement, which is also in the town manager's quarterly report.
This is also a follow-up from the August 8th meeting. The board had asked him to look into signing a memorandum of understanding with T-Mobile and to solicit input on what the industry standard is for the term lengths for communication lease agreements. And Attorney Costa and I spoke, and it's very unlikely that T-Mobile would sign a memorandum of understanding, but an alternative would be for the board to grant them a use and occupancy license for up to 1 year that would allow T-Mobile to continue to use the town hall clock tower for their equipment in exchange for paying the current lease payment pending a new long-term lease. And in terms of the industry standard, the town recently signed a 10-year lease agreement with up to 3 5-year extensions, which is a total of 25 years with Verizon in April. And I received input back from the town of Northborough that they signed an agreement in 2011 for 20 years, and will be putting out an RFP shortly for another property for a 20-year lease. And the town of Halifax has a 20-year lease in 5-year increments. My recommendation would be to grant a use and occupancy license to T-Mobile for the current lease payment, pending approval at the fall town meeting for a 20-year lease agreement with an additional 5-year extension, and which would be dependent on an award to a responsible high bidder through the RFP process.
You don't think putting that in increments would be a good idea?
Meaning 5-year
Yeah.
increments?
Like you said, the industry standard, which is 10 with the up to 3 5-year extensions.
Mm-hmm. And there were some that signed just a straight 20.
Yeah. I'm just concerned about inflation and what the world looks like in 10 years if we'll still be getting a good deal.
I would agree with that.
Or in 10 years, we don't use cell technology, but I'm sure there may be some escape clause for them anyways.
Yeah, why would you go against the industry standard? What's the rationale for making it 20 years?
Based on the 2 other towns that have done it. We signed, ours is a total of 25 years with the initial term of 10 years, but if there's an appetite recently for 20-year lease agreements in other towns, then there would be for Lunenburg as well.
And in the event that the town were no longer own the town hall, is there going to be a clause in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the downside of the 10-year?
The only thing I can think of is might give an opportunity for a company to renegotiate the payment, and it may not be favorable to the town.
That's pretty hypothetical.
Actually, T-Mobile, when they approached to renew our current lease agreement, they wanted to decrease the amount of the payment.
And what is the current payment?
It's approximately $2,800 a month, I believe.
I would make a motion, we accept the town manager's recommendation.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I would like to do a 10-year lease.
I agree.
So what this is, so you're doing a occupancy license subject to town meeting. If town meeting turned it down,
No. The selectmen, and maybe Attorney Costa can, when he's done his meeting with Adam, speak to this, but it would be basically a license that you grant them in the interim until we have a town meeting to extend it. Right now, we have the authority The town does, the board,
The board does.
the board.
To do use
To
in
do a 10-year maximum license, we would have to go back to town meeting to get anything beyond 10 years. So the use and occupancy license is making sure that we're continuing to reach or receive our payments from T-Mobile, and that they're allowed to have their equipment on our town building,
But-
even though we don't have a valid agreement in place.
And then with the understanding that we would go to town meeting to get approval for a 20-year lease agreement.
Correct. In the terms of that use and occupancy license would outline that that would take place.
So, but the 10-year with the extensions, do we need to go to town meeting for that?
Yes,
Just because the extensions
The
are involved?
extension.
yes, it's the total amount of years.
So I'm fine with it because we have to go to town meeting anyways.
Yeah, but I think we should go to town meeting with what we think is the best option.
My position is I'm much more comfortable with a 10-year lease and two 5-year extensions.
I guess I would be interested in finding out what is their exit opportunity, because my concern is with technology changing. If we had a 20-year lease and they wanted to get out of it, do they have to pay us the rest of the 20-year lease? That's often the case. Whereas if we have a 10 and 5 and they want to get out, we will just lose that money.
And we just lost Attorney Guest.
Yes.
Now, but we're at a time frame now where we have to do something in terms of a license until we make.
Correct. To
The 10
expire, or
Right.
we have an invalid agreement. So.
Right.
So there's a motion on the table right now. We have to vote on that motion, and then we can potentially make another motion.
I mean, I guess I don't know why we would have signed a 10-year lease with Verizon in April 2017. We just did that.
But we did it for a total of 25 years.
Which violated
Which
the,
violated, we needed to go through town meeting for that.
we could only,
Because it's a total of 25 years. We could only do a 10-year.
Just to clarify that, so the lease signed in April with Verizon was for the tower at the turf field.
that's not
Oh,
this one.
okay, that's not
That's
this
the
one.
25,
And we did go to
The
town
board,
meeting. for
though-
that. And we did
Include
go
that.
to town
Yes,
meeting.
Yeah, but I
That
mean,
was-
but we decided 10 year with 3 5-year extensions, so it seems
Okay, yeah.
very soon to flip, to say, no, now we want 20. We wanted 10 then, now we want 20. It's only a couple months later. So I guess I don't understand the rationale, explaining it at town meeting. I don't know, we just changed our minds. I mean, I just don't know what the rationale is.
Yeah, having said all that, and understanding what we just did and what the town just approved, I would kind of feel like we should stick with that standard that we've already, seems to work, people are good with.
So I'm fine with granting the use and occupancy license for the current lease pending approval, but I would recommend it be for a 10-year lease with two 5-year extensions.
Change your motion, or do you want to vote on that motion?
No, I'm fine. Actually, I would mirror what we have with it at the school, which is a grant, use and occupancy license to T-Mobile for the current lease payment amount, pending approval for the fall town meeting for a 10-year lease with up to 3 5-year extensions for a total of 25 years.
And I would be fine with that.
Do you have a second on that?
Second. Well, didn't you already have a motion in a second? Or did you amend your
I'm-
motion? You just amended your
I'm pulling
motion?
my motion back.
Okay.
So do I have a second on the revised motion?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any further discussion on that?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All righty. Next item is the town manager evaluation form and the FY 2018 goals for the board and the town manager. So you have a pretty extensive package in front of you that has two components. One is a proposed town manager performance evaluation form that town manager and I have kind of worked on together. She's done a lot of the work, but we've kind of discussed the previous form that we've used in the past, the areas of areas of observation and skill sets and behaviors and deliverables. The main difference is that instead of a point system, we've talked about going to a three-tier rating scale that says exceeds expectations, meets expectations, and needs improvement. The objective on the performance form would be to come up with an overall assessment of performance on one of those three levels, exceeds, meets, or needs improvement, based on the subsections, and there are 10 subsections, and although we tried to skinny that down to less than 10, they all seem to be important.
Yeah.
I like this much better than what we had, that's for sure.
I like the format better, but I have a problem with taking out the rating scale or the point system, because I think it's going to make it extremely difficult to come up with a compilation from all 5 individuals, because I think it's much more subjective versus a point scale that has a number associated with what that rating is overall based on all 5.
So let's take an example of if you had 2 of us say meets and 3 say exceeds, what will the composite review state?
Exactly.
Will it state? I mean, you could do 3 say meets and 2.
Yeah, and I think you would state it that way. I think forcing it towards a numeric, one of the problems I had with the past one, frankly, is that we have 10 items. Some of them have as many as 8 to 10 bullets.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about 80 different points, all of which are kind of equally weighted if you give them all numbers. Mm-hmm. And what I think the objective is to look at the 10 subsections and come up with an overall exceeds, meets, or needs improvement based on your assessment of the individual ones, but coming up with one, okay, in the area of professional skills and knowledge, it's my assessment based on these supporting examples that the town manager meets expectations.
I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
With taking out going through the 80 individual, because like number 1, for example, there's bullets associated with that, and then based on analyzing those characteristics, you're going to determine whether, in your opinion, it exceeds, meets, or needs. But I don't see why we couldn't associate a numeric value with those, so that I'm going to rate a 3, Bob's going to rate a 4, Phyllis is going to rate a 2, and then it's the average of those 3 scores. So an overall, because I just think it's going to be tough. With Bob's example, say you had 2 exceeds, 1 needs improvement, and 1 meets. What then? What is it?
I think you write it up in a way that says, whether you say majority or whether you say 3 members of the board feel you exceed, but there's some concern in these couple of areas. I think that the whole idea of a performance evaluation form is to provide feedback to help the town manager keep doing what she does well and improve on where we think we need improvement, not necessarily to come up with a numeric, score.
Well, see, and I would agree with that. I absolutely agree with the fundamental idea that a personnel evaluation is to provide feedback on both parts, from both the board's part and the town manager's part. But I also think, looking at the history of the way we've done this in the past, it was absolutely linked with our prior town manager to salary, and it was based on a numerical rating. And I think that, I personally think that makes it much cleaner from a financial standpoint. I agree with you that taking out all the individual scores, but I still have a problem with not putting any kind of rating, because I think it's much more subjective. And we have absolutely, in the time that I've been on the board, have very differing opinions on the rating. And I think it having an overall average makes it much cleaner.
I seem to think that I would move away from the number system, or like this system. I just think trying to put a number on a person and trying to relate that to what value they add is difficult, and it may muddy, the results. I think it's better to have this system of meets needs improvement, because if we all just say meets expectations, then the number would be right down the middle. But if we mix it, or somebody says needs improvement, we don't know why somebody said needs improvement. The number doesn't reflect that somebody's needs weren't being satisfied. It's sometimes when you do a study and try to put numbers on things, the numbers can lie to you. So I feel like having it be a scale of where our expectations met is somewhat more helpful than just assigning a number to it.
So what does the contract state regarding review?
Let me go one more. The other item that's in here is the town manager goals and objectives. And I think that one of the things we have to talk about is the weighting, if you will, of meeting those 5 objectives, 3 of which immediately directly align with ours, and then 2 of them are objectives that the town manager felt that she wanted to put on there, on her own. To what extent does the meeting the goals and objectives drive the performance review, and to what extent do the 10 characteristic of management drive that? Right?
It's a very good question, because it always
Right.
was very unclear in the
Exactly.
past evaluation.
And if you recall, we determined that we wanted to do this in this setting as opposed to a workshop, but this is a good example of why that sometimes gets a little difficult.
Right.
But there's kind of 3 things going on here. One is providing feedback to the town manager on her individual performance against the 10 items that we feel are important, items like professional skills, problem solving, individual characteristics, supervisory oversight and direction that are part of the evaluation form, performance against the 5 goals that she's proposing, 3 of which are directly related to the goals that we as a board set. And then the final thing is what does the contract call for? And I'll remind you that we did not specifically talk to performance relative to salary increases. We said we were going to deal with that once we did this. So that we do have to revisit that, and I'm going to suggest that at a point where we are comfortable with what we're talking about right now, we either do it in an open session or have an executive session, but suggest that we look at the town manager's cycle and align it either by adding a couple of months to her contract or some mechanism like that, align it to the fiscal year so that we can line it up with the goals. The town manager has been in her position now a little over half a year, I guess, and we're just now embarking on the FY18 goals for both us and her. I think we need to assess the performance that's been done to date and recognize where does that fit into the whole process, but then we also want to, I believe, we may want to address changing the process to match up with a fiscal year.
I mean, it's clearly, except for the goals, I think this review document works with starting day 1 when Heather started. I think that there's a lot of good work on that part. I've been in systems where you had numbers and salary was tied to numbers, and that number came out too low, so I'm going to adjust this score on this one, that type of thing. So I think this is actually cleaner and is a better feedback. And I like the fact that we want progress on the goals, and if something can't be done because something else, well, we'll adjust that at that point. I think we need to have a separate discussion for how will we address salary changes on that part. As we've talked with town employee reviews, we were consciously saying that employees should be reviewed, but that doesn't necessarily tie directly to the cost of living adjustments that are being made. But it's important to have employees be given feedback by their supervisor. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, and that we have to have a to-do of how are we going to actually address a salary increase.
Now, I did all the talking. Do you want to weigh in on any of this, or?
I covered most of it, yeah. Just that the contract language says it The review would happen on my anniversary hire date, which would be mid-January.
So this is the first time, this is the first time we've discussed this. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read through it. I don't know that I have mixed emotions. I mean, on one level, I want to give you plenty of time to digest it and review it. On the other thing, time's a ticking
Time's a
because
wasting,
we're
right.
into the goal year already.
So I would make a motion that we accept the town manager performance evaluation form as presented, including goals and objectives review, with the understanding that with a to-do list of coming back to see how we're going to actually determine compensation adjustments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I am not in favor of adopting this form, not because of the way it's laid out, but I still feel strongly that the numeric value is important, so I will not be supporting the motion. But I don't have a problem with the content of the performance evaluation.
Yeah, I think it's much better than what we had.
I would absolutely agree with that.
And in response to that, I agree with the feedback that the numerical number actually gives. I would recommend that if we have a divergence of meets, exceeds, and does not meet within the board, that needs to be included in the composite review. That it's not just let's smush those together, because if you have an exceeds and a needs improvement, and those cancel each other and we get to a meets, that's not the way this should be. We should say 3 exceed, 2 meets, and the next one, 2 meet, 1 does not meet, we need to say what's there in order to communicate the full thing.
I agree, and that job happens to fall to me this year. I'm more than willing to take input on how that best gets.
And, we should
discussed and
try it.
reviewed.
It doesn't have to be something that we keep forever. We can try it without the numbers and see how it all falls out.
I appreciate what you're all saying. I have a problem with it having gone through many evaluations, and in the earlier years, some very tough situations with the evaluations, and I felt that the point value system was incredibly important, so I won't support it.
Okay, town manager just pointed out to me that even though they're both numbered 6, the last item on the first page of the town manager performance evaluation calls for the procedure to schedule a workshop to discuss the evaluation process, compile information to improve future evaluations, and discuss agreed upon goals and objectives for selectmen and town manager. So even though we're probably going to call that 7, we do have to continue to work that.
And who will schedule it? Board members, chair,
Well,
doesn't...
this is the town manager.
No, but
This is
this
the
is...
procedure
the very
for the
first page
performance.
says procedure.
I would assume that it'd be,
It's worded
Okay.
funnily.
I assume it would be.
Oddly.
Funnily?
Funnily. Oddly.
I assume that it would be the chairman would schedule the workshop.
I would
since
agree.
This current
Okay.
chair sets the agenda.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So we have some more work to do on this, and I think we have some work to do. I did send a quick one-pager on my notes from our goal-setting process. I think we have to flesh that out a bit, and our next workshop at least talks to one of them in that economic development is kind of next up to be a workshop. So we'll get to that. Any other input or comments, questions on town manager evaluation or board goals?
Well, I had a couple of questions, and there are some items that it seems like we're probably, like for item 4, it seems that we probably need to interview staff and board members, and for 5 and 6, interview staff, because I don't know that I would have firsthand knowledge of those things without interviewing people.
Teamwork, staff effectiveness.
This was something we've talked about in the past. Do we really?
Right.
I think our role on that is what we observe and I'm not sure we're supposed to be involved in the
So
day-to-day management.
I don't know how like I was looking at this thinking, okay, how do I weigh in on this? How do I judge?
So,
And so those were difficult for me without interviewing people.
yeah, so I would take it what Jamie was talking about, if you look at how the staff that report to the town manager act at town meeting,
How they what?
how they act at town meeting. how
Or when they present to us.
Or when they present to us, or when they're at public events. That goes to, are they cooperative with other departments? And in past, I would say that we've not had that case. I think there's other examples of that we can actually see. Respect coming from various staff. But I think this is something that's to acknowledge, but I don't think I wouldn't want to go talk to Jack and think, well, what do you think about Heather? I don't think that's a 360-degree evaluation process that's done very carefully, but not by people like us. There's actually a system that people do it, and you wouldn't want to do that and interfere with the relationship that goes on. So I think it's important that we consciously deal with that when we actually go to review that. But I think that we get clues from interactions that we have with her staff.
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Reeves, so I think it's observable behavior from the board as opposed to us getting involved in day-to-day management.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how I would judge those.
I think some of these are going to be, you have an item that you've observed and you're going to give us specifics, and some of them you just don't. I mean, there's 10 items with 8 bullets each. You're probably not going to have an opinion on some of them. And on others, you're going to have a strong opinion.
And so, as we said before, let's try this and see what doesn't work, and then we may need to either adjust it or change it.
I would also encourage this under the procedure that each board member meet with me individually.
Yeah, there is a procedure, but that's to review. You mean before?
But I would recommend, and this is, I've done this in the past with the evaluations, is kind of done a draft, sent it to, based on my initial, this is the way I've done it, whether it's right or not, I don't know, is done a draft based on my initial reaction to the form, met with the town manager and said, okay, this is my initial scoring. And and quite often, there was a disagreement or information that I didn't have, and then I may or may not change that final form based on that meeting. That's the way I've done it.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're recommending. Very definitely, you're going to have a one-on-one from each of us, and this is a compilation for the public over and above that.
No, but I think what I'm saying is the way, and again, whether it's right or not, I don't know, but what I've always done is made a first pass at the evaluation without all the narrative necessarily, sent it and said, okay, this is what I want to talk about, and this is where I think the problems are, and then I may or may not adjust those scores based on that meeting.
In number 6, where it says supervisory oversight, it says provide, let's see, which one was it? Something in a timely manner, and I'm thinking, I don't really know what that means.
Which one do you want?
Provides, number 6, provides feedback in a timely manner. The second bullet.
So it doesn't ignore a personnel issue. So if there's somebody whose people have complained about,
We don't find out about it 8 months after the fact.
and the town manager hasn't provided a warning or hasn't provided whatever, or if they're doing great and they haven't praised them, that's another concern.
Okay, thank you. Number 6 is salary reserve transfer. What is that?
Were we going to discuss the goals, at all? Go into them more? That was part of that last agenda item.
Okay.
And the board's goals as well.
Okay, so, but which one does, okay, so you're not going to number 6, you're staying with the goals?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, what I suggested is we do need to spend some time on our goals, and if these points that the town manager put forward to support our goals make sense. And I thought that was included in what we talked about, but you want to take a minute and make sure that we agree with that?
I think this is what we had talked about previously, and I thought that the motion included approving this, didn't it?
So did I.
Okay, I thought it was
Yeah.
just
No, it was a motion on
restricted to
both.
Yeah.
the performance.
Yeah,
I did mean to incorporate it into it.
Right.
In what I said was, during the discussion, was that if there's something on the goal of your goals, or our goals, that something interfered with it during the year, then we will address that. If there was that out of your control for a situation, that we would still deal with that on that case.
The only point I'd like to make on that, because we revisited it, is it's pretty ambitious. I mean, you know, like the feedback I gave the town manager when she shared this with me is that it's a pretty ambitious set of goals.
Well, and as I said at a recent meeting, when I knew that the task would probably get passed down to the DPW director, then part of the goal is that, part of these goals is that she's responsible for this happening, but doesn't necessarily mean that she personally is going to do this work. Somebody, hopefully, by effectively supervising staff and giving them feedback on a timely basis, that she would get some of these things done.
Now I'm moving to number 6.
All right.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So what is the salary reserve transfer?
Okay. So the reserve transfer is for fiscal 18 for the town accountant finance director's contract that was signed.
Okay. So this is the amount of money that we agreed to, we were going to transfer from finance director, town accountant salary to,
No,
the other way.
Other way around.
from salary reserve transfers to director, town accountant salary.
Correct.
And it's 15,492.80. And then there's another one for, from the same line item into director, town accountant, cell phone stipend, $480. That just requires my signature. Is there any problem with that?
Nope.
Okay. Alrighty, minutes, we have minutes from the 1st of August. Warrants. Payroll in the amount of $606,312.28. Payroll deductions in the amount of $118,883.13. Accounts payable in the amount of $279,944.75. Any action file issues?
I had one. We had some discussion when we received the proposal from the new town council about increasing the number of town council office hours, at least in this initial phase, as we work to get board members used to this new line of thinking. I noticed this month's office hours are full, leading me to think that there may be a benefit to this. Has this been explored?
No, it hasn't. This was, we had a conversation and it was going to be an action item that you brought to the board.
Yeah, we were interested in having office hours more than once a month, especially in the initial phase.
Okay. Yep. I don't remember the board discussing it.
Well, I think we discussed it as part of the signing of the contract, but I don't think we discussed adding to what we did in the contract, did we?
I thought so.
I thought we talked about how many hours.
Right, and it was
I have to go
identified
back.
between 3 and 4 hours a month, and that was, language was added to the contract.
But when we discussed the contract, we said that we felt that they had, in their presentation, they had indicated more than that, and we were looking for more than that in the initial phase.
Are we not meeting or do we have people that are signing up and not getting?
It was full tonight.
There were 2 slots because 2 people did not show up.
But do we have anybody that wanted time that couldn't get it?
Not that I'm aware
Not
of.
this month?
Yeah.
So maybe we could watch that and,
And if it does become an issue, I think we need to address it, absolutely.
Because we thought that, especially as we're trying to encourage people as we're just starting out, this is a new line of thinking. We're trying to be proactive and change everybody's mindset. And, we're paying this flat fee. And we talked about before with our other attorneys, there were things that we were supposed to get that we weren't on top of and we just didn't get. So I'd like to get what we're paying for.
committee reports? Mr. McQueen?
Yep, the planning board has a upcoming public hearing they want me to remind everyone of, a application for a 6 megawatt large-scale ground mount solar installation at 994 Northfield Road. The hearing is August 28th at 6:35 here in the town hall. And also in our pile tonight, we had a letter from Mr. Jeffries asking to be the board's alternate to MRPC and MJTC. I don't know what we need to do.
That's
It's on the agenda.
That's on the agenda.
Okay, good. Then capital plan, we had our first meeting of the year. Town manager went through updates of the fiscal 18 projects, most of which are either out to bid, ordered, or received. And our next meeting is September 5th at 5:30, so?
Correct. And Damon's the chairman.
Correct.
Good.
Good
All
luck.
set?
All set.
Okay. The school committee met to begin capital planning process and set goals for the superintendent and the committee. They're holding a special meeting tomorrow evening at the middle high school to select the members of the charter review committee who will represent the school committee. None of them will be on the committee, but they're selecting 2 people. The ZBA is considering the request of a resident on Cross Road to put in a 24 kilowatt ground-mounted solar array on an 8.2 acre parcel. The Stormwater Task Force meets this coming Thursday. This morning, I attended the steering committee meeting of the Central Mass Regional Stormwater Coalition down in Upton. They're in the process of planning out workshops to benefit members. The next steering committee meeting will be October 3rd at 10 in Auburn. The annual meeting will be 11/16. The location is still to be determined, but they're hoping it'll be centrally located. The coalition is hoping that town officials, such as town managers, will attend. Heather and I met with Bruno Fisher of Mart. The shuttle van continues to have low ridership, and they're trying to work with us to figure out what we can do. The $36,000 that we can put in from the MBTA money is just not nearly enough. So, the ridership is not increasing, and so over the next few weeks, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do about that. There's several options. The COA van could be utilized.
Can we get the ridership statistics?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's it.
Ms. Bertram?
Just have a quick update on cable advisory, which I'm not even sure if it's, yeah, it is we're continuing to ongoing negotiations with Comcast on the cable license, and our next meeting is September 7th.
Steve, so.
The Sewer Commission on August 15th reorganized Joe Anderson as chairman, Carl Luck vice chair, and Joan Pease clerk. That's it for me.
And no report from me. Town manager report?
The town hall mold abatement project has begun and is about 50% complete.
Do we have a cost on that?
I believe it was approximately $47,000 for that portion of the project.
$47,000 is the mold abatement, and what is that, where is that work being done? Is it mainly the basement, is it building-wide, or it's just the basement?
Just the basement.
Okay, now, you had mentioned that there's some work that needs to go on in the attic. Do we have a price on that as of yet?
We do, well, we already did the bird waste cleanup. That was
Okay.
already performed.
And do we have
in
a cost?
fiscal
Do you
17.
know
That was
what-
$7,000.
That was 7,000?
Mhm.
And is there additional work that needs to be done there?
All the records need to be moved out, so we're going to have to address how that's going to happen.
Okay.
Do you have a place to put them yet?
I'm recommending that they go to the Passios, that we set aside space at the Passios building for storage, because there's classrooms that can be used for that. Because we cannot store anything in the basement from this point on. And structurally, the building can't handle the weight that's in the attic.
Okay, so we've spent 47,000 on the mold abatement. That's the total, that's not the 50%, that's the total, you
That's
think?
approximate.
That's
Right, yeah.
approximately? Okay, thank you.
And just on the records, are we required to have them on premise like the police do with some of their files, or just easily accessible?
Permanent records, you saying?
Yeah.
So the town clerk has permanent records that would be in the vault, or that would be, but if there were records that someone requested, we have 10 days to provide them copies of those records, so they don't have to be on premise.
Okay.
They just have to be secure.
Correct.
Right.
All right, this is probably an agenda item, but I guess I would just question what is secure. I know there's certain records we have in the vault because it's fireproof. And I have no idea the kind of records that have been taken out of the basement. I know that a lot of the records that are in the attic are land use records, because many years ago I put some of them there. But are there certain things that have certain requirements as far as protection?
Yeah, any record has to be protected. It doesn't make any difference whether it's a payroll record or whether it's a temporary record like a check that has to be
Okay.
kept for 7 years. It all has to be kept safe and secure. The question becomes, does it have to be kept forever? Well, it has to be kept in a place that's secure and nobody can get to it, and it's not going to be damaged by mold or anything else like that. So, I mean,
Okay.
it doesn't make any difference what the type of record is. It has to be
Okay.
kept safe. There are
Okay.
additional requirements because there's personal information on payroll and other things like that that have added security issues that you have to make sure that they don't disclose under the state and federal laws on that part. But
Okay.
it's a different thing. But I think this is an ongoing thing that generally towns have not spent money on because it's an easy thing to ignore. I think Kathy also found out that they've changed some record retention timeframes and was able to dispose of a lot of the records that we might otherwise have kept for purposes of administrative convenience as opposed to legal requirements.
Right, I know when I worked in the Selectmen's office way back when, we would have to actually write and request the ability to destroy records. We would have to
Correct.
identify
It's
what it
still
was that
happens.
we were going to destroy and get permission. And are there certain things that have to stay in paper format?
For instance, I believe like building plan iterations, the planning board receives, those have to stay in paper. The electronic format is not an acceptable permanent.
Okay,
So there's a whole schedule the Secretary of State has come up with, paper, electronic, and all that.
okay, thank you.
And we still, I think it was a board goal, or we talked about it anyways, as far as we still need to work on our IT because we don't have any remote off-site cloud storage, is that correct? Like, our electronic files are still saved in the building, so if it burned down, we'd still lose them. Is that the case?
I thought not, but I can,
Double check the
yeah,
backups.
double check.
Yeah, maybe this is an
Yeah, keep
agenda
record.
item that we talk about, a record storage.
And just to let you know that in the event the town hall were to burn, the vault will not save the records.
Okay,
There is no fire suspension here. The fire would be so large that even though it's concrete and everything else like that, that would not save the records.
okay, Good to know.
Should probably keep them at the fire station.
Tax title properties. There was a question at the last, my last report I gave about the number of tax title properties currently. And as of August 14th, we have 48 tax title properties. And this has decreased partially due to owners paying their outstanding taxes or entering a tax payment agreement.
Great.
The Community Compact Technology Grant for e-permitting software. After presentations from 2 e-permitting companies, Viewpoint and Permitize, and a cost proposal from a third, we have decided to proceed with a company called Viewpoint. Their demonstration was far superior in the ease of use for both internal staff and from outside users of the software was evident in contrast with Permitize. The Land Use Director, Adam Burney, is finalizing the services that Viewpoint will provide to the town, and we hope to begin training in the fall with a soft integration in January of 2018 and go live with external users in the spring. So training of all the internal users and ease of use with the software is a primary goal in order to see this successfully utilized and create as smooth a transition as possible.
Were the land use departments able to attend those demonstrations?
They were invited, and I believe the only, the building department was represented.
Okay. And I know we have the grant for the initial investment, but do we have an annual estimate for the cost for this software for moving forward?
Yes, so the annual cost would be approximately $32,000.
Which you hope to recoup with the technology fees, right?
Partially. We examined what impact that would have on the applicants, and if we were to pass that totally off to the applicants, it would be a 10% technology
Can we
charge.
do that? I know from building permits, there's a formula by which you have to determine the fee. Can you attach a technology fee to a building permit? Under the state building code, there's a specific formula by which you have to use for permits. So I just would say you need to look at that. I think for the other permits, I think you absolutely can. I know from a Board of Health perspective you can. But I would just question on the building permits because it's a state formula.
We can look at that.
And I would think any time that you probably could, as long as you can clearly identify the cost, then that's...
We should.
We should, but if there's a statute.
Okay, and just an announcement to keep repeating this, there's a public auction for the foreclosure of the 5 vacant town-owned properties, which will be Tuesday, August 29th at 1 p.m. in this meeting room.
Has that been publicized at
Oh,
all?
God.
Oh, yes.
Yeah? Yeah?
Sorry,
Okay.
was a sign at the public safety that has since been changed because on Facebook it came up that the town was selling 5 buildings. And oh, by the way, how many buildings did we have available in the RFP for the town center? 5 buildings. So people immediately jumped to, we were going to sell those properties and that we were doing it without going to the
Oh,
public.
that's right. I did see that.
So
You're
then it
right.
was, then Heather made sure she worked with the fire chief to make sure it was changed to say 5 vacant town-owned properties, so it was clear that it was not the town center.
Okay.
So which ones are they?
It's actually
They're
listed
in there.
here.
They're on a little orange piece of paper.
So it is vacant lots, 98 Youngs Road, 360 West Street, 425 West Townsend Road, 1162 Massachusetts Avenue, and 1263 Massachusetts Avenue.
So to be clear, these are properties that we have foreclosed on?
Correct.
Okay, these are not municipal areas that we're now sending, these are properties that we have foreclosed on?
Right.
Okay, just to be clear.
And that's all I have.
We have appointments for election officers.
I would make a motion that we reappoint Janice Carrier, Warden, Michael Gale, Deputy Warden, Clerks Kathleen Pliska and Darlene Steele, Inspectors Elaine Aubuchon and Elaine Gale, Deputy Inspectors Ernest Aubuchon and Ann Shattuck, all with equal representation between Democrat and Republican parties.
I would second that, and I would just correct, it's B. Allengale, not Elaine.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We have to ratify the appointments that we have so far for the Charter Review Committee. Do you want me to read them out, or do you want to make a motion?
So I'd move that we ratify the appointments of which we made Board of Selectmen, James Toll and Robert Eversole, Finance Committee, Teresa Birchfield and Mark Erickson, School Committee appointments. Do we have any update on that?
They will be.
You're going to do it tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. All right, thank you. Town Moderator, Millery Keeling and Stephen Archambault, and Planning Board appointment, Michael Ray Jeffries.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then we have, whoop,
Can I just add, Selectman Eversole, you'll be reaching out to those members?
In order to set up the initial meeting.
First meeting?
Yep.
and I know that we just got the paperwork on the MRPC alternate and the MJTC appointment, but Michael Ray Jeffries has volunteered to fill those positions. Are we in a position to make those appointments this evening?
It was on the agenda. I'd make a motion that we appoint Michael Ray Jeffries to be the MRPC alternate and MJTC appointment.
There's a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So before I ask for a motion to enter executive session, just want to go over our upcoming meeting schedule. Our next meeting is September 5th. And our meeting on September 12th is a workshop, which we've now determined we are going to televise, but we are going to do it in a workshop format. Okay, and then we have a meeting on September 19th, a normal business meeting. Is there any public comment from the public?
Hello, Julia Callahan, Beale Street. I did not come here tonight to public comment, and in fact, I'm very nervous to be doing so. I came to begin participating in local government to listen and to witness its operation firsthand. I was raised in Lunenburg and am currently raising my family here. I am very interested in the future of the center. However, I'm a bit disheartened at what I witnessed tonight. A board member challenged community-driven discourse on Facebook. Here tonight, off of Facebook, a citizen volunteered her time to voice her concerns and add information, and she was told this isn't a debate, though she didn't begin the debate. It seems that any opposition to the current plan to move town offices to Passios, and thus to disrupt our municipal identity, is being belittled and silenced. In closing, I'm just wondering, if we're chastised for free expression on a privately run Facebook page and our ideas are yelled down during public comment, perhaps you can let us know when and where we can have our voices heard openly and respectfully. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Bertram?
I just would like to comment that I absolutely believe that everyone has a right to debate, everyone has a right to their opinion. I believe that it needs to be done respectfully, and I appreciate the passion of all of the people that have commented, but all I am asking is that rather than view us as the enemy, that we work together. No decisions have been made. No decisions have been made unequivocally. My goal is to involve the town, but to do so in an exchange of ideas. And quite frankly, I am in favor of a lot of the ideas of town space, of preserving green space. I support all of those things. But to be seen as having a hidden agenda or a workshop being in some way, some secretive way to do things, historically, I've been on this board almost 12 years. We've always had workshops. There's nothing, we're not trying to do anything behind closed doors. And to be, some of the comments, and I'm not saying all of them, and absolutely everybody has a right to say them, as do I. As do I. As one of the people is being commented that I have a hidden agenda or that this workshop is somehow some secretive meeting, I absolutely, as a citizen, just as you do, have a right to comment on that.
The point that I was a part of this discourse on Facebook, and I would challenge anybody to tell me a comment that I said that wasn't 100% true.
And nor did I point you out. No, I didn't point out anyone. All I'm saying is that people that make comments, and I'm not going to go back to the page and point out specific. All I'm saying is that don't make judgments as to.
I didn't make a judgment.
But Absolutely, and so do I have the right to free speech as well.
It's free speech
Again,
until you start accusing us of corruption.
This is my public comment too. I didn't accuse anybody on this board of corruption. I think, and to be fair, there might have been about 98 comments to that post. I think maybe 5 of them were out of line. I would agree with you. But that's a small number compared to a lot of other people that just had legitimate concerns.
So why is I'm very curious.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. This is public comment, board comment. This is not a dialogue. I need to get out of here.
You made my point. Thank you.
As public comment, I'm going to make one more statement.
So you can, you're allowed to make
You're allowed to continue.
That's enough, yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
You know what? I am very disheartened by the fact that some individuals can speak, others can't. I think that we do have to have ongoing, it's public comment and it's board comment. I'm now commenting as a board member.
Commented during my comment as well.
I apologize. I pointed out facts at the beginning of the meeting, as I knew them. Additional facts were raised which are absolutely accurate, that there is a fee for the telecommunications tower, which is quite honestly something that I neglected to say, and I appreciate that correction. All I said at the beginning of the meeting, as with any individual who has a right to free speech, so do I. I didn't choose to comment on Facebook. I chose to comment here so that it's publicized and it will be televised. I want people to be aware of the facts. There is no agenda right now to pave Paradise or to pave the TCP or to make all the decision was made at the workshop was to move, excuse me.
Excuse me.
We had to call an end to this, but you're allowed to continue the dialogue. It's not a dialogue if you're the one who's allowed to speak. Thank you.
I'd like to ask for a motion to enter executive session
You asked for
pursuant to General Law,
Excuse me.
Chapter
you asked for
3.
Public comment. I'm here from the public. I raised my hand for public comment. So you're not letting me have closed public comment?
Please, briefly.
You have to be brief, Katie.
Okay, really fast here. Katie Adams from Williams Drive. You keep referring to yourselves as volunteers, and I'm not being paid to be here as an advocate for my town. Also volunteering to be here to contribute. No one person earns like a volunteer badge if we're all putting in the same amount of time, even if I don't have a title. In terms of the Facebook discussion and slander, the chair, Jamie Toll's girlfriend, slandered me during the campaign.
That's
and
enough. That's enough.
He
I'm
made
sorry.
Facebook
Point
comments
of order.
to promote
We can
other
call the police
candidates.
department because you're being disrespectful.
And I just
That's
wanted...
enough. Thank you very much for your public comment.
I would.
Entertain
The chair
a
has the right to
motion.
cut off public comment.
Oh, he does. Thank you.
Yep, the
It's
chair
just-
does, and
Yes, I do.
the committee supports him.
Wow.
I would move that we move into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, namely Town of Lunenburg versus Oliva, Worcester Housing Court, docket number 16H85CV000812, to Cronin et al. Versus Town of Lunenburg Zoning Board of Appeals, Appeals Court, docket number 2017P-0099, and O'Brien Homes Incorporated et al. V. Planning Board for the Town of Lunenburg Land Court, docket numbers 13 miscellaneous 477878 through 13 miscellaneous 477877, Town of Lunenburg versus Unitil, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating positions of the town. Not to return from executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. McQuaid?
Aye.
Mrs. Luck?
Aye.
Mrs. Bertram?
Aye.
Mr. Ebersol?
Aye.
And I for myself, Mr. Toll. Good night, everybody.